Hi, it's Christina with the Sisyphean Journal. This is part 3 of my reacting to Trigernometry's interview with um, Dr. Anne Furedi, who is former CEO of British Pregnancy Advisory Service, which is a ginormous abortion facility, chain of abortion facilities. This section is called 24-week time limit. And she's been arguing that the woman has the right to an abortion because that baby's inside her body. Now, is she going to say that once you hit viability, you have the right to end the pregnancy but not to end the baby? Inquiring minds want to know. My guess is she is going to justify it. She's going to justify abortions. I won't necessarily say the whole way up until birth for elective reasons, but I don't know. Let's see where she goes with this.
But hang on a second. So, on the whole, I agree with the argument. But shouldn't there be limits around when a woman should be able to get abortion? Should be able to get an abortion? Because, for instance, 8 months in, most babies can live outside of the womb 8 months in. Should that be allowed?
Okay, well, so this was one of the things that used to really do my head in, actually, when I was running BPAS, because we have a 24-week time limit.
In the UK.
I think in lots of ways we could probably say that it's not unreasonable. 24 weeks is 6 months. We can accept that by then, frankly, very, very, very few women would be contemplating having an abortion, because
they're asking her about the morality of it, not how often it's chosen. But it's interesting. That's always the go-to when you hit abortion proponents up about post-viability abortions, as they start to talk about, well, it happens so seldom.
By that time, you can feel fetal movement. You're generally, visibly pregnant. In this country, it's quite easy to get an abortion in early pregnancy. What is a terrible thing, I believe, is when you have that guillotine of dates. And so, and believe me, this is a seriously practical problem, where there will be all kinds of reasons why a woman will present late in pregnancy. And sometimes it's got to do with the fact that a wanted pregnancy has become an unwanted pregnancy. Maybe it's because her circumstances have changed. Maybe her relationship has broken down. There are a whole load of things that can go on. Pregnancy always happens within the context of a woman's life. But it seems to me utterly insane that an abortion that is perfectly legal on the Thursday, when she is 23 weeks and 6 days pregnant, is utterly illegal on the Friday. So,
and I 100% agree with her. That is absolutely nonsensical.
Say the doctor's sick. Say something happens, like there's a train strike and she can't get to the clinic. If you've got that absolute guillotine of a time limit, it's not like it's not like a speeding limit where you can go a little bit beyond it. It's literally the case that 1 minute past midnight, a pregnancy that was legal now isn't. And that to me is mind-numbingly stupid. And it's very harsh for women who are on that cusp.
She's not addressing the fact that these babies could be born alive. I wonder if she's going to get to that, or whether she's going to just continue on the path she's going down.
And when it comes to the very late abortions, those ones that I think make everybody draw in a deep breath. It's when you hear of women, and this can really only happen for severe fetal anomaly.
Now remember, Dr. Miller noted that cleft lip was one of the legitimate severe fetal abnormalities that justified a post-viability abortion in the UK.
And you hear of these very, very late cases, and typically that will have been a managed situation between a woman and her doctor, and very often those very late ones are when the baby would be born with some absolutely crippling anomaly that means that it couldn't be kept alive after birth, and the woman has said to her medical team that she really wants to carry the pregnancy as long as possible out of love for that unborn child.
So it's not someone deciding, you know what, I actually don't feel like. Yeah, sure. But can we explore a few more arguments from that I found persuasive with Callum? So it's interesting that we agree that it's killing, and so we can maybe come back to that part of the conversation. But the other thing that he explained,
I don't know, I felt like she was still sort of weaseling. In most cases, usually, typically, she was very careful not to entertain the idea that there should ever be any limit. Just like I said, kind of weaseling there, but let's hear where Constantine goes with this.
Was that quite often, and look, my wife is currently 8 months pregnant.
Yes.
Right?
Okay.
So
you know exactly what it's like then to be 8 months pregnant. Yeah.
And one of the things...
I mean, not exactly.
Well, no, not exactly. No,
I know exactly what she's going through.
Even if you tell me you're a pregnant woman, I'm not going to believe you on that.
Right, exactly. Well, you're very transphobic. But so one of the things that I've observed is that, and my wife would tell you this herself, is that she's gone through various stages, not only physically, but also emotionally and mentally and psychologically, and sometimes she's very, very calm, and other times she's a bit more emotional and a bit all over the place, and this is the process that you go through. And one of the points that Callum made when we interviewed him was that if you look at the statistics of how women feel if they've had an abortion versus carrying the baby, even if they were forced to carry the baby through, is that the statistics show, Callum says, that actually the outcomes are more positive for women who carry the baby through than the women who have an abortion. Right?
Yeah.
So my point being that we don't always necessarily know what the right decision is in advance, but the evidence does seem to show that women seem to benefit. They're more likely to I mean, these are terrible words. I'm getting myself into awful trouble here. The outcomes
because it's
are better.
A really difficult argument.
The outcomes are better, statistically speaking, for women who carry the pregnancy through, even if they didn't want to, versus the women who have an abortion. That's what he argues.
Yeah, but where do you get? I mean, that is a kind of I think personally, a slightly wacky way of looking at it, because once you get into these studies of better outcomes, you end up going all over the place. So I can tell you the outcomes of pregnancies that are conceived to women in their early 20s are better than the outcomes of pregnancies that are conceived by women later ages and so on. We wouldn't go around saying, it's a really good idea for everybody to be getting pregnant when they're in their early 20s, and we shouldn't be letting them get pregnant in later years because...
And she is bringing up a very good point, that the fact that the vast majority of women benefit from continuing the pregnancy, and it's only a small minority that are like, damn, I wish I'd have aborted that kid. That can't be your criterion. That can help people to understand that this is not cruel to say, yes, I know that your baby has Down syndrome, and I know that right now you're panicked and you're feeling like you can't cope, But if you look long range, you're going to be fine. That's what that information is good for. Because you can go conversely and go, oh, they're thrilled that they aborted and that therefore we should allow this. The information that the woman's better off when she carries the baby, when she's got perinatal hospice and all that support, the fact that she's better off is a means of reassuring the woman while she's in that stage of fight or flight. But it can't be a justification for where you draw the line.
Because the outcomes are better. That really is the road to a very eugenic society where you're basically organising people's behaviour on the thing of outcomes. And the problem is that these studies, it's very difficult to get comparable groups. And I think that it ultimately comes down to allowing people to make the decision that they think is the right decision for them at the time.
Now, does she believe that they should be given the information that, yes, right now, it's like if, from what I understand, you step on a stonefish, it is so painful that people will beg the doctor to just amputate their leg. They will be pleading, please cut my leg off. This hurts so bad. This hurts so bad. This hurts so bad. None of us would think the doctor was justified and go, well, okay, lop and take off the leg. We would all feel that the doctor has a responsibility to say, yeah, you are in absolute agony right now, but I can tell you this is going to last however many hours, and afterward you are going to be glad you still have your leg. So let's work on getting you through these hours where you're in a lot of pain, because later on you're going to be glad you kept your leg. Does she think that the abortion practitioner has a responsibility to say, look, your long-range outcome is a lot more likely to be positive if we just get past this panic right now. Right now, you're letting the pain make the decision for you. We want you as a fully cognizant human being to be making an informed decision based on the fact that you're going to almost certainly have a better outcome if you just ride out this initial emotional whammy. And I don't think she's going to touch that. I don't think she's going to go anywhere near that women should have that information when they're making that decision.
Even though sometimes we might look back and we might think that we would have made a different decision with hindsight. I mean, we do that with all kinds of things that we do in our lives. We do that with the people we marry or have children with and so on. Seemed like a good idea at the time. Not very sure it's the right thing to do. Looking back, I would have done it. Looking back on it, that's my husband, by the way. It's like looking back on things. Yeah. We're not immune to it. Now, what I can say as a former abortion provider is that and I know that people who are very against abortion tend to demonize us and don't entirely believe us when we say this. But the last thing that you want is to end a pregnancy and for someone to regret it. You really do not want that to happen. So there's a massive amount of work that goes on to ensure that women, particularly with these later procedures, are really in a space where they have considered all of the various options. And then,
whether that's true in the UK or not, I don't know, because I'm not nearly as familiar with UK abortion practice as I am in the United States. Anybody in the United States who thinks that the average woman climbing on the abortion table has gone through a long process of thinking this through with guidance, and this help can be made available, and this is what the typical outcome, yada yada. Now, she's saying that this is made available. She's saying that this is the process. But also, every abortion practitioner in the U.S. claims that you don't need informed consent laws because women are fully informed and they are making these decisions with their eyes open with all the information they need. They say that all the time, and we know that that's not true. You have undercover investigations where they're clearly just trying to sell the woman an abortion. You have lawsuits where, you know, they did informed consent for a 6-week abortion and she was 28 weeks pregnant. Yeah, there's all kinds of evidence that no, this is not a carefully thought through decision with the woman's long range benefit in mind. It's, we want to make the sale. Now, is that true in the UK? I don't know. Maybe those of you who are in the UK can tell me, because if I looked at other countries, I'd lose my mind. I have to stay focused on the US. But I have to tell you, I have a whole lot of trouble believing her. I really have a whole lot of trouble believing her. Because I hear this from abortion advocates all the time, and I don't know whether they're lying to themselves or whether they're lying in general.
I'm not making a snap decision on it, because you do not want to be the doctor who is being hauled up in front of the GMC and accused of not properly ensuring that women have consented and been counselled and so on. And more to the point, you're a decent human being and you don't want someone to be in a situation like that. So I think that, you know, what I would say to Callum is you can't live people's lives for them. You have to treat women like the adults they are. You have to make sure that they have weighed up all of the options, and that they're not making a snap decision. And then you have to let them decide.
It's a good point. And when I said I'm persuaded by his argument, I was not suggesting that necessarily means we should outlaw all abortions based on the fact that the outcomes are better. But is that something that a woman might be told, that, you know, look, you're considering an abortion, here is the evidence about how women feel as a result of having an abortion versus carrying the child through?
I don't think that you would, well, I don't know.
Because wouldn't that be relevant to tell them?
Well, I tell you, so I think, right, and I know
she's starting to weasel when he gets specific about what do you go over with the woman.
That this is the way that things go on certainly in BPAS clinics, is the conversation that you will have with somebody, that the counsellors will have with someone, is very nuanced. And when, for example, as you quite often do, you get a younger woman in who's basically saying, actually, I really want to have this baby, but my mum will kill me. You're saying, actually, she probably won't, you know. And let's think about how you might have that discussion with her. Or the person who's...
That would make them radically different from American abortion practitioners. I hope she's telling the truth.
Saying, you know, I really want to have this baby. I can't cope with this morning sickness anymore. I can't cope with da-da-da-da-da. You're talking to them about how they can cope with it. And I think that where there's sometimes an imbalance in the sort of issues is if you take like the other side, it's not really a two-sided argument. There are some doctors who are absolutely against abortion. And then there are those of us who are providing services who it's not like you're for abortion. It's that you want women to make the right choice. And where I really respect Callum is that I think that Callum does really believe that abortion is a bad thing for women. What I would say is that having run an abortion service for 17 years, there are very, very few women who will come back and basically say, I really wish I hadn't done that. The number of women who contact us and say, thank you for enabling me to put my life back on track is huge.
Hey,
Okay, so I'm not sure that that is going to be an adequate sampling. I think if you are absolutely miserable as a result of something that happened somewhere, you're not really all that likely to go back. But if the counseling that is provided in the UK is what she said it was, then my idea of the law that I would love to see, which is she can sue you for the wrongful death of her child unless in court you can show that you provided full informed consent. If what she says is accurate, let me see something, because 80% of women who are offered options by pro-life centers reject abortion. So hold on a minute, and I'm going to look at the abortion rates in the UK versus the US. So hold on, I'll be right back. Okay, I pulled up this one page that says the abortion rate in the US is higher than that in the UK. The US recorded an abortion rate of 20.8 abortions per 1,000 women, compared to England and Wales 17.2 abortions per 1,000 women. However, that's not 80% lower, which I would expect to see if women really were being offered all the resources that they needed to avoid abortion. So I have my doubts about the thoroughness of their informed consent. Okay, and they pause for a commercial, so I'm going to end here, and we are going to pick up on the next section, which is going to be 1 in 3 women will have an abortion.